Dziękujemy bardzo. Myślę, że mają Państwo lepszą wizję teraz tego, w ramach jakich programów działamy tutaj w Polsce. Na wcześniejszej prezentacji Peter Behrens wspomniał o rodzicach. Z naszego doświadczenia możemy powiedzieć, że gdy my spotykamy się z rodzicami, oni często mówią, że to wcale nie jest tak, że oni nie interesują się tym, co ich dzieci robią w internecie. Często wyrażają bardzo wyraźnie chęć większego zaangażowania, ale z drugiej strony zaznaczają taką ogromną barierę, którą odczuwają w kontakcie z dziećmi. Obawa przed kompromitacją, obawa przed obnażeniem ich niewiedzy. Jak wielka jest
showing how little they know about internet. So we will now hear Mr. Will Gardner from ChildNet International UK. Will has been involved in the internet issues since 2000, and he has run already a dozen or so international programs. Over to you, Will.
Dzień dobry. Good morning, everybody. My name is Will Gardner. I'm from ChildNet International. I'm here really to introduce a few issues around children and parents today, but I'm going to start just by briefly introducing the organization I work for. ChildNet International is a children's charity. We're based in London in the UK, and our mission statement is helping to make the internet a great and safe place for children. So we are very positive about new technologies and the incredible opportunities it gives young people to connect, create and discover new things. But at the same time, there is a negative side, and we've heard already this morning some talk about the potential risks to children. The contact risks of grooming and cyberbullying, the content risks of children accessing inappropriate content or creating their own content and putting it online and making themselves vulnerable, and also the commercialism online and what effect or risk that poses for children and young people. So I've told you a little bit about ChildNet. It would be very useful for me to know who is here in the audience. So if you don't mind, if I could ask you to raise your hand if you work in a school. Could you put your hand up if you work in a school? It's quite a good number. How about police? Police, people who are police or work with police? There's quite a good number here. What about for those of you here who are parents? Can you put your hand up if you are a parent? Okay, it's good number. And put your hand up if you are a parent of a child who is using the internet. A smaller number of hands going up. Here we go. Here we go. That's better. Okay, well that's enormously helpful because I'm here today to talk about children and parents, and I'm going to be talking in two parts, really about, well, how are children and parents using the technology, and what is the difference between them? What is the attraction of the technology to children and young people, and what are the issues that result from that? And then secondly, to think, well, what does that mean in terms of how we respond in terms of education and awareness? So, to start with, here is a picture of a girl, and she is, I don't know, 3, perhaps maybe 4, and she has a portable DVD player. This was taken at a ChildNet awards program that we ran. It happened to be in Jamaica, and it was in 2005. And it's a really interesting image because it's showing how familiar children are at a very young age with technology, and research is telling us that children are involved with using media, including the internet, from even before the age of 5. And that's very interesting, and you can see why very simply. When you have machines with buttons, and when you press them they make noises like mobile phones or computer keyboards, you can see that is an enormously attractive feature for a child. And you can see many toys that children are using include features like this. It's a pretend mobile phone with buttons, and children are associating the use of these from a very early age. Sometimes I think parents are giving these toys to try and keep their own mobile phone safe from their child. They give them a toy one. It shows us that children are very comfortable with technology. There's a quote that I'm going to give you from an author called Douglas Adams, and he said that everything that is in the world when you are born is normal. He said anything that is invented between the age of 0 and 30 is incredibly exciting and creative, and with a bit of luck you can make a career out of it. And lastly, he said that anything that gets invented after you're 30 is against the natural order of things and the beginning of the end of civilization as we know it, until it's been around for about 10 years, when it gradually turns out to be all right, really. So it demonstrates how it's really just a quote talking about how as we get older, we find change more difficult, and we can relate that very easily to technology. You may have heard the expression digital native and digital immigrant. Digital native refers to children because they are born into a world with technology. They know nothing different. It's just part of the world that they live in. Whereas for the older generation, they are the digital immigrants. They are coming to terms with new technology. It wasn't around when they were born. It's a new thing, and they are coming to terms with it. And this picture can kind of highlight how if you arrive in a strange place, and like the internet, and it's active, there's bright, there's flashing things, there's buttons, it can be overwhelming and daunting to a newcomer. Now, this is a bit unfair. There's a picture of a website where there is a very good film, a program called Growing Up Online, and unfortunately I don't have time to show it to you, but I've got the website there, and I can if you want to email me, I can easily send it to you. It's a short film looking at young people using the technology in America, and I've got 3 quotes drawn from it. First one: the internet has created the greatest generation gap since the advent of rock and roll. Talking about the gap between the generations in relation to technology. From the young people, there's one scene where there are 3 teenage girls sitting on a bed talking about the internet, and one of the girls said, "If I was a parent and saw some of the things that we were doing on the internet, oh my God, I would be scared," she said. So there was some sympathy from a young person towards a parent about the difficult situation they have with young people using technology. And there's another interesting one from a parent who was talking about the difficulty he had communicating with his child, with his son, who was always using the internet and new technology. He said that if he shouted up the stairs, he wouldn't get an answer. But the best way to get in touch with him would be sending him an email from downstairs to upstairs, because that way he knew that the son would read the message. Which is very interesting, and I think that shows some ways in which parents are starting to use the technology to communicate with their children. So how do children and parents use the internet? Parents are all different, and we'll talk about that a bit later on, but generally speaking, the use of the internet is more for practical reasons. When the need arises, I will go to the internet. Obviously, lots of parents are using the internet and email in their work environment, but parents are using it for research, to look at holidays, for banking, and using it in this way. Whereas young people, it's a different experience. It's immersive, it's interactive, there's applications like chat, instant messenger, music, social networking sites, games where you can communicate with other, build relationships with other, be expressive, create your own content. It's a very active medium. So rather than parents who are dipping into the internet when needs arise, they are in the internet. There is no distinction between offline and online. It is just It's just the world. This is just life. It's not somewhere where you go. It's somewhere where you are. It's all around you. And that is reflected somewhat in the different uses and the different understanding of the technology by this statistic I've got at the bottom here, where parents were asked about whether their children know more about the internet than they do. 51% of parents, this is in the UK, said that they felt their child knew more about the internet than they did, even from the age of 8, for the older age group, for 12 to 15. So there's enormous confidence of young people using technology. And that can be intimidating for parents. So we're talking about the technology as part of children's lives. Why is it so attractive? Here is a quote from a young person from a focus group that we ran a few years ago now, where the child was a 15-year-old girl, and she said, "If you took away my mobile phone, you would take away a part of me." And that just demonstrates how essential the technology has become to their lives. Now, there's a few points around here about why the technology is attractive. One of the reasons is anonymity. You can be whoever you want to be on the internet. It can be very disinhibiting using the internet. You can talk to people who don't know who you are about things perhaps that you wouldn't feel so comfortable talking to someone you did know face to face. You can access the world. You can discover amazing things. Educationally, it's an amazing tool. It's an active medium. It's not like the TV where you sit and you watch it. You can engage, you can create and communicate and get involved. It's an amplifier. It gives children a voice, and particularly on social networking sites, we see children who are expressing opinions and ideas about things which will be seen and read by a much larger audience than they could have hoped to have had before. There's something about acceptance. Having a social network profile on Bebo or MySpace can be really important to be accepted amongst your peer group because everyone else has got it, and you need to keep up to date with what is happening. Another attractive thing about technology is the fact that parents are not there. That is one of the reasons it is so interesting, and we have to recognize that children, although we want to encourage parental involvement with children in the use of technology, children will not always welcome that approach. And the environment is addictive. It's very engaging, it's very sticky, if you like. We hear about children spending huge amounts of time on social networking sites and playing computer games. And lastly, it's always on. It's 24/7. It's all the time. You can contact anybody at any time. You can share photographs. You can do it 24/7. So what are the issues that coming from that? We've got amazing confidence on the part of children and young people in relation to technology. 97% of children said they feel confident using the internet. And in this quote here we have from another study in the UK saying that teenagers using social networking sites have a sense of invincibility. They are going to be okay. Nothing can harm them because they know what they're doing. And they feel that even if something bad did happen, we can handle it. We can manage it. We're savvy enough to be in control. And there are obviously some issues arising around that. We know that if you ask children directly, what are your main concerns about using new technology, they might say it is peers, not perverts. Our biggest worry about the internet is our friends, children our own age who will bully or humiliate me or get me online. It's not paedophiles, because children will say, "Oh, I can spot a paedophile a mile off," and it's part of that confidence, that sense of invincibility that they feel. And statistically, perhaps it's more likely that it will be an issue, the problems will arise in relation to a peer. Other concerns that they would have would be around pop-up advertisements and security of their computer. They don't want to get their home computer infected, and they have serious concerns of getting into trouble with their parents around that. There's a quote from the same study in the UK where we have a 13-year-old girl saying, "Obviously you have to put safety first, but I wouldn't know how to go about it." So we have to respect that children are different, and they may have this incredible confidence in relation to technology, but they don't know everything. They have this technical literacy which can outstrip their parents. Certainly parents feel ill-equipped to deal with this, but they don't have the life experience that parents do have to keep safe in this area. Although they may feel that peers are more threatening than perverts, it's important that they do know that adults with a sexually interested children, they need to keep safe online, and they need to know how to do that. So who is responsible for keeping children safe online? It's a shared responsibility, and we've got this jigsaw puzzle here where we have schools who need to play a role in making sure children know how to use the internet safely. We have government and police, and we'll hear about that during this conference, but they have a role in setting the regulations and enforcing them. Industry have a role to play to making the environments a safer one for children to use. And parents and carers, those closest to children, have a vital role here in relation to children. And this is what I'm going to talk about briefly now. Here's a slide. It tells you that parents aren't the same. Parents are different ages, they come from different places, they use the internet and familiar with it to a different extent. It's important for us to recognize that. However, generally speaking, parents rate the internet as the media platform that is most beneficial for their child. But also, it's the media platform which is of most concern, which is an interesting paradox, with the most benefit but the most concern for them. And they have higher levels of concern than their children do. But despite having this higher level of concern, we can see that 51% of households don't use filtering, and the main reason that they give for not using filtering is because they say, oh, we trust our children. We trust our children using that technology. And so there's an interesting contrast of, they have worries, but they trust their children. And it's interesting to look at that and see, well, how does that work? Is it because children look so confident when they're using the technology that the parents, or is it because they don't feel they know enough to get involved? Certainly we find that parents do feel ill-equipped to get involved. They don't have the confidence to get involved with their children's use of technology. We did some research 2 years ago where we looked at some families who had not really engaged with technology. We were talking to the parents, and there's a few quotes here that really illustrate what fears parents have in relation to technology. The first one says, I get so worried about what they might see that I feel happier if they just don't use it. What would I need a computer for, really? The kids use it for school, but not for me. The internet makes the culture gap. Kids just can't talk to their parents about these things. I have a look if they call me over, but I don't really know what I'm looking at. I'm frightened of the internet, and I have no idea what my kids are doing when they are on it. So it's important for us to recognize that there are families who are very unfamiliar with the technology, and it informs us in the work that we need to do when we are communicating to parents about internet safety. So what are the implications of how children and parents are using technology on the messages that we need to get out there? I've got a few broad points here about education and awareness for children and young people. There is certainly a need for clear messages and tools. We know that children using social networking sites, which do have privacy functions, which enable you to control who is able to see your profile, and is an important safety tool. We know that 40% of children 12 to 15 are not using these tools, and that's not always because they've chosen not to. Not all children are confident, and I've spoken about children's confidence in the use of technology, but there are some who do not know how to keep themselves safe, but there are those who feel so confident that perhaps they are more at risk, and it's important for us to engage. So there's a real need for clear, prominent and timely messages. But this is young people's space. They feel like they own this space, and they may not welcome intrusion from a parent or an adult into it. So it's important to communicate in a positive way. not with don't do this, don't do that, because that will be the first thing that children want to go and do after you've told it. You have to be positive, you have to be relevant and engaging. And we're talking about communication technology, so what better way to communicate to young people but actually using the technology that they are using? It's also not just about messages, it's about changing behavior. When we speak to young people, they tell us, don't tell us safety rules about how to keep safe on the internet. Tell us why we need to know these safety rules. Put it in a context so we can see the need to keep safe. And it's also important that we use a variety of different options. If we can include this in schools, when children are learning about the internet, if parents are confident to talk to children about internet safety, using other young people, a very powerful way of communicating, and the media, which we're going to hear a bit more about later on, and new technology. But what about parents? I've talked a little bit about listening to the late adopters of technology, those who have real fears to overcome. They don't want to be made to look stupid when they engage in a conversation with their children. They need to learn about the technology. You need to overcome these fears. It's important to have better engagement with technology. The best way to increase parents' confidence about talking to their children about technology is if they are actually using or actually know the technology that they are talking about. It doesn't mean they have to become experts or chat every night or have a social networking page, but it is important for them to go and visit, to have an idea of what it is. If a child has a problem in a chat room and they think their parent has never been to a chat room, there could be a barrier there. I won't go and talk to my father because he's never been to a chat room. He won't understand what I'm talking about. Parents also need help in engaging with their children. The internet is one of those difficult subjects that parents have to talk about with their children, and it's important for us to assist them in that, and there are ways in which we can do that. And underlying all of that, we have to have this communication in a positive way. This cartoon says, what's the biggest internet danger? And the answer is that you'll concentrate on the dangers and forget the benefits. It's really important that we don't market fear to parents, because we know that they already are fearful in this space. It's an important message that most children are okay online. That's a really important message for parents to hear. It's important. So when we're talking about it, we have to be providing solutions, not telling them, "Oh, this is terrible." Now, just at the end of my presentation, the last few minutes, I want to talk about something we did in the UK, which was targeting particularly those parents who were late adopters of technology. The government was running a program where they were providing 100,000 computers into the households of families who hadn't had computers before. They were socio-economically disadvantaged families. And it was considered important because technology is becoming such an important part of education and homework and such like, that there was a risk that some children would be left behind because their parents didn't have that access at home. So that's where the program came from. And we provided this, a CD-ROM, which you can see here, called Know It All for Parents, which went with the computer to help talk to parents about, this is the internet, this is what it can do, this is the benefits, and this is what you need to know in order to keep your children safe. Before we did it, we did some research with some parents and carers. And there was a range of points that they raised, which was important to inform us, and I want to share those with you now. Firstly, that it was important to understand what the fears of parents are, and these were quite clear. There was a fear that parents they felt they were getting left behind. They also felt very vulnerable, and if they wanted to talk to their children, they'd be made to look stupid in front of them, because they didn't feel they knew what they were talking about. It was important to listen to what parents wanted. we asked them, what do you want? If you want somebody to talk to you about internet safety, how best to do that? And they said, well, really, I want you standing at my shoulder when I'm using the computer, telling me exactly what to do. But obviously that's not possible. So failing that, they said, well, give us a video. This is a medium that we like. This is what we want to see, something that we're used to, familiar with, not a long video, but something that we can come to in bite-sized bits that we can go to and come back to when we're ready. As we build our confidence, we want to find out more, and we want more to be there. We don't want a lot of text. Just like children, parents said we don't want a lot of text to read. We need to appreciate the messages that they wanted to hear. They wanted to hear, well, what are the benefits of the technology for me? Many of the parents could see the benefits for their children, but they couldn't see what relevance has this got for me. So it was important to communicate that positive nature, to encourage them to get engaged. And the best, as I said before, the best way for building parental confidence is to actually get them involved in using the technology. We asked them, who did you want to give you this message? Who do you trust to give you messages about stuff like this? And very interestingly, they said, we trust information from our children's school. This is a body that we have a relationship with. This is where we would like to get our information from, which is very useful. As we were looking at socioeconomically disadvantaged families in the UK, many of these families didn't have English as their first language. It would be a second language, and they felt that they wanted the resource to be in their own language to make it more accessible and easy to understand. And they also wanted something that they could use with their children. So this is very interesting findings that we then used to inform the construction of this CD-ROM. The first program went to 100,000 families. The government said, okay, we'd now like to have 1 million copies of this CD-ROM, and we'd like to make it free for schools to order to then distribute to parents. So the information would be coming from the school. And it was a chance to try and build a relationship between the school and the parent on this subject. And 1 million copies were made. It has a summary of the content in 9 different languages: Arabic, Bengali, Gujarati, Polish, Punjabi, Mandarin, Urdu, and British Sign Language. There is video content from young people on the disc, so we have young people potentially talking to young people. It's about encouraging that dialogue between parents and children. This is something that parents and children could sit down and watch. There is also a family agreement on there, which has about 20 rules for using the internet and blank tick boxes next to them. And the idea is for parents and children to sit down and to go through these rules and tick which ones they feel are relevant to them, and obviously leave the others out. And there's more opportunity to add more rules depending as different families have different values. And then this is printed off, and you have it next to the computer. A really good way of encouraging a dialogue about how the internet is used in the home. We've just updated this content because the technology is always moving forward. We have more focus now on social networking and cyberbullying, and also letting people know about where they can report to if they get into difficulty. So 1 million copies were made last May. In 5 months, all 1 million copies were gone. So there was an enormous demand for this information, and we're now producing another 500,000 copies. It's no good me just talking about it. What I'd like to do is to try and show you a little bit of this. And this is from a summary version in Polish. So I'll play it for a minute, and hopefully it's going to work. Here we go. So here's the tab and the landing page, and there'll be a man standing there talking through the whole subject, and it's quite easy to navigate. You can see the different languages down the side. Hopefully it's going to work. Okay, there is volume. He does speak, but if we can't hear him talk,
Uważa, że o internecie i telefonach
what he says.
zapewne podobnie jak ja, wiecie Państwo, że
So, like you realize that to keep up with your children in the day-to-day world is difficult. My 8-year-old is better with a computer than I am, so I know how difficult it is to take care, to look after what kids are doing on the web, online, especially what they're posting on their websites, who they're messaging
Just to
and
give you a
chatting to.
flavour of it, if you want to go and look at it, it's on our website, so you can see it. You can see it there. Now I've only got a few minutes. I just need to round up. Hopefully there we go. Presentation is coming back. So just in broad summary of what I've just said is that the children are the net pioneers. They are using services in ways that we haven't imagined. They are in the social networking sites and doing things and exploring, and they are in the forefront of this. And it's vitally important that we all do what we can to make sure that they are in this environment and they know how to operate it safely, and there are people working to support them, and parents have a vital role in this and need to be supported to do this effectively. It's crucial that we support parents to engage with their children. It's really vital that we have a strategy to help do that. Dziękuję. There's my email address at the bottom if anybody would like to get in touch, but I'm here for the next 2 days. Thank you very much.